The Giant's Causeway on the rugged coast of Northern Ireland stands as one of the most breathtaking natural landscapes in the United Kingdom. Its towering cliffs and deep coastal bays form part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, admired by millions every year. Beneath its surface lies a violent origin story. Lava once filled this valley to depths of nearly 100 meters, where extreme heat shaped the rock into what we see today. At one point, temperatures in that ancient landscape are believed to have reached levels so extreme that everything was in a molten state. Just like boiling water eventually cools, that ancient fire also settled into stone. For centuries, scientists believed there was nothing unusual here, only a natural masterpiece formed by volcanic activity, pressure, and time itself. But what if that explanation isn't complete? What if something hidden beneath this calm coastline has been overlooked for millions of years? Because an 11-second drone video may have just shattered that entire belief system. A tourist visiting Northern Ireland had no intention of discovering anything unusual. He was simply capturing a sunset over the legendary cliffs. His drone lifted into the fading golden sky, drifting over the iconic basalt columns that have fascinated explorers for generations. At first, everything looked normal, until it didn't. Something appeared in the footage that should not have been possible. A section of solid cliff began to move. Not crumble, not collapse. It opened. A massive slab of stone, estimated to weigh nearly 20 tons, slowly slid outward from the cliff face with unnatural precision. There was no explosion, no debris, no visible cracking or erosion. It moved like a door, a hidden door embedded inside one of the most studied geological formations on Earth. And behind it, there was only darkness. Not a small cavity, not a natural cave system, but a deep, unnatural void with no visible end, like a space that was never meant to exist inside solid rock. Then, just as silently as it opened, the stone returned, sliding back into place with perfect alignment, sealing the cliff as if nothing had ever happened. The man controlling the drone was not a scientist or explorer. He was a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin, simply filming cinematic shots of the coastline. But what he captured raised questions that go far beyond tourism or geology. Because the Giant's Causeway is supposed to be solid. For decades, scientists have explained that nearly 40,000 interlocking basalt columns formed here millions of years ago when volcanic lava cooled into near-perfect hexagonal shapes. A natural process. No design. No intelligence. No hidden structures. At least, that's what everyone believed. But if that stone really opened, then something or someone might have built a passage inside the mountain itself. And when researchers finally moved in to investigate what was seen in that footage, what the radar revealed would change everything. The lead researcher wasted no time. She arrived at the site carrying ground-penetrating radar equipment, scanning the same cliffs she had studied for years. She was one of the most respected geologists in her field, someone who understood these rocks better than almost anyone alive. She positioned her instruments and began scanning the exact section where the stone had moved. At first, nothing unusual appeared. Then her screen changed, and she froze. For nearly 2 minutes, she didn't speak. The radar had detected something impossible. A massive hollow chamber buried deep inside what should have been completely solid rock. It measured roughly 3 meters deep and 8 meters wide. That alone should not have existed. But what was inside it made the discovery even harder to explain. The scan showed 7 tall figures standing upright in complete darkness. Each one measured between 2 and 2 meters in height, far larger than any known human population in recorded history. And the most unsettling detail wasn't their size. It was their formation, because they were not scattered randomly inside the chamber. They were arranged with precision. And that raised a question no one wanted to answer yet. What exactly was standing inside solid stone all this time? They were arranged in a precise formation, each separated by exactly 4.5 feet, as if standing in perfect military alignment. Every single figure faced the same direction, all of them oriented toward the same point deep inside the cliffs of the Giant's Causeway. At that moment, the discovery stopped feeling unusual and started feeling wrong, because basalt does not form around standing objects. That is not how geology works. Solid rock does not naturally shape itself around upright structures, which leads to only one disturbing possibility. Those figures must have been there before the lava solidified, sealed in place while the rock was still molten. And if that is true, they have been trapped there for at least 60 million years. long before humans existed, long before mammals dominated the planet, even before the dinosaurs had fully vanished. Something was already there, something that should not exist in any known timeline of Earth. And then the situation took another turn, because the scans didn't just show shape, they showed activity. The figures were warm, and they had heartbeats, but they were not supposed to be alive, not even supposed to exist. The next day, another specialist arrived with more advanced scanning equipment, a geophysicist from Belfast, known for studying deep underground formations. At first, he worked with complete control, careful, methodical, professional. But within 20 minutes, everything changed. His hands began to shake so violently that he had to set the tablet down. What he was seeing didn't make sense. The updated scans revealed something far more disturbing than before. The 7 figures were not solid rock. They were hollow. Each structure appeared to be an outer shell, thin, empty, almost like something had once existed inside them, or still did. And then came the most confusing part. The material itself should not have survived. Whatever formed those shells should have been destroyed instantly in molten lava temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius. No organic material, no known compound, nothing on Earth should have remained intact. And yet, they were still there, preserved inside stone that once flowed like fire, locked away for tens of millions of years. Within 48 hours, government agencies were alerted. That was when everything shifted. An official environmental authority arrived and issued a public statement dismissing the entire discovery. They claimed the drone footage was simply light distortion and shadow effects. They insisted there was no chamber, no anomaly, nothing unusual beneath the cliffs, and urged the public to stop spreading speculation. But there was one problem. Their lead consultant refused to sign the report. According to witnesses, she reviewed the full data set, turned completely pale, and resigned from her position just days later. Her resignation letter contained only one sentence. She wrote that she had already seen enough. After that, the situation escalated quickly. The entire area around the Giant's Causeway was sealed off with barriers and warning signs. Officials claimed it was due to erosion risks and public safety concerns. But those involved knew the truth was different. They weren't protecting the cliffs. They were hiding them. And then something happened that made everything worse. One of the researchers returned to the data 4 days later. He wasn't breaking protocol. He was following standard procedure, comparing updated scans with previous records. He expected nothing to change. But when the new image loaded, his entire body went cold. One of the figures was gone. Only 6 remained. And yet, the stone chamber had not opened again. There were no cracks, no movement, no recorded disturbances. The electrician's motion sensor camera, still pointed directly at the cliff, had captured nothing unusual. The entrance remained sealed the entire time. And still, inside that completely closed chamber, one of the 7 figures had disappeared. No debris, no tunnel, no trace, as if it had simply passed through solid basalt itself. The investigators were left with no logical explanation for what they had just seen. How could something move through solid stone without leaving even the slightest trace? There were only 2 possibilities. Either there was a hidden passage beneath the radar's detection range, or something far more disturbing was happening, something that defied the basic laws of physics. Could these beings actually pass through solid matter? That question alone changed everything. And then came another shock. Because the readings didn't stop, they escalated. The figures were warm, and they still had heartbeats. A new specialist was brought in from another city, this time a scientist trained in thermal imaging and underground heat analysis. Her task was simple: rule out natural heat sources, volcanic activity, underground water, or geothermal anomalies that could explain the readings. It was a freezing morning in March. The air outside measured just 39 degrees Fahrenheit. The cliffs were cold, exactly as expected for the Irish coastline. But when she activated her thermal camera and aimed it toward the hidden chamber, the screen changed instantly. Bright reds, deep oranges, heat signatures where there should have been nothing. Inside the sealed chamber, the 6 remaining figures were glowing with internal heat. Their temperature readings stabilized at around 99 degrees Fahrenheit, almost identical to a living human body. That should not have been possible. Stone does not preserve heat, not for millions of years, not in freezing coastal conditions. And yet, deep beneath the Giant's Causeway, something was still warm, something was still active, and something, or someone, was already missing. Because one figure had vanished. No explanation, no trace, no opening in the rock. And heat doesn't behave like that. It spreads, it fades, it disappears. The scientist questioned the results immediately. The readings were too perfect, too stable, almost artificial. At first, she assumed someone was testing her. But when she realized no one was joking, she quietly shut down her equipment and didn't return to work for nearly 3 weeks. After that, the team changed their approach. They installed vibration sensors directly into the rock face, designed to detect even the smallest movement inside the stone itself. What they recorded next was far worse. A rhythmic pulse, constant, steady, unmistakable, every 4 seconds. One of the scientists struggled to describe it, choosing his words carefully before finally admitting the truth. It wasn't random vibration. It sounded exactly like a heartbeat. At the same time, the thermal readings became unstable. Temperatures suddenly spiked above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, then slowly dropped again without explanation. These fluctuations did not match tides, weather, or any known geological behavior. Something was regulating the heat, something inside those hollow shells. And worse still, they were moving. Every 72 hours, new scans were taken to track the chamber. And what appeared next made the situation even more disturbing. The 6 remaining figures were no longer fixed in place. They were shifting, slowly, carefully, only a few centimeters at a time. No sudden motion, no chaos, just gradual, deliberate change between each scan. They were no longer standing in perfect formation. Now they were grouped closer together, and they were moving toward the sealed entrance. It no longer looked like random movement. It looked intentional, like something waking up after an impossibly long sleep. Think about what that means. These beings have been sealed inside solid rock for 60 million years. Before humans, before recorded history, before entire continents reached their modern shape. They survived mass extinction events, climate shifts, and geological transformation. And now, they are moving again, right beneath one of the most visited natural landmarks in the world. More than 1 million tourists walk across the Giant's Causeway every year. Families take photos. Guides tell stories about ancient giants building bridges across the sea. No one suspects what lies just meters behind the cliff walls. 6 massive entities, hidden in complete darkness, radiating heat into solid stone. And yet the truth has been carefully contained. The entire area has been restricted with barriers and warning signs. Officials claim it is due to unstable rock and erosion risk. But those who worked on the site know that explanation is only what the public is allowed to hear. Because the real reason the area is sealed is what an electrician accidentally captured with his drone. One of the scientists involved eventually decided she could no longer stay silent. For months, she carefully analyzed the thermal readings, cross-checked the heat signatures, and compiled everything into a detailed scientific report. Her goal was simple: to bring the truth forward. She presented her findings to the official geological committee, fully convinced that the world needed to know what was hidden beneath the Giant's Causeway, that something inside the earth was still alive. But her report was rejected almost immediately. She was told her equipment must have malfunctioned. Her methods were questioned. Her conclusions were dismissed without review. And just when it seemed the story would end there, a quiet message changed everything. A colleague from inside the committee contacted her privately and revealed the real reason behind the rejection. It wasn't about accuracy. It was about consequences. Because if the public ever learned that biological heat signatures were being detected inside rock that is 60 million years old, it wouldn't just challenge science. It would collapse it. Entire fields of geology, biology, and history would be forced to start over. Textbooks would lose meaning overnight, and nothing would stay the same again. Within weeks, the entire monitoring team was quietly removed from the site. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. They were warned directly, speak about this, and their careers would end permanently. But there was a problem. The evidence didn't disappear. It remained. The electrician still kept the original drone footage stored across multiple hidden drives. And the researchers who worked on the scans made their own decisions in secret. Each of them kept copies of the sonar data. And that data was the most disturbing part of all. The final readings taken before the equipment was removed showed no sign of stopping. The 6 remaining figures were still active, still moving, still emitting heat. And the one closest to the sealed entrance had moved even closer. Its heartbeat signal was growing stronger with every new scan. But one question refused to disappear. Where was the 7th? At the beginning of the investigation, 7 figures were clearly detected. Now there were only 6. No trace of the missing one remained. No signal, no movement, nothing. And that raised a terrifying possibility. If it had escaped, then where did it go? How did it leave a sealed chamber inside solid rock? And most importantly, where was it now? It could be anywhere, deep in the Atlantic Ocean, inside unexplored coastal caves, or somewhere far beyond any known mapping of the Earth. The idea that one of these ancient entities is already outside the chamber is unsettling, because it suggests this is no longer a contained discovery. It is something active, something moving, something we cannot track. It feels like watching a countdown that started long before human history ever existed, and now it may be reaching zero. We often assume humanity is the first intelligent presence on Earth, that we are the center of the story, that everything before us was just history. But these findings suggest something very different, something older, something that was already here before fire, before language, before civilization itself. They survived mass extinction events. They endured shifting continents, ice ages, volcanic destruction, and the rise and fall of entire worlds. And now, they appear to be waking up. Before the final shutdown of the project, one researcher made a desperate decision. He gathered every piece of data they had collected, thermal readings, sonar scans, vibration records, and movement tracking, and uploaded it into an advanced AI system used to analyze geological anomalies. He expected errors. He expected rejection. He expected the system to flag it as noise or malfunction. That would have been the easiest explanation. Instead, the AI processed everything in under 4 minutes, and what it returned left the entire team in silence. It confirmed that the 4-second rhythmic pulse was not geological. It compared the signal with over 200 known natural phenomena. Nothing matched. No seismic pattern. No tidal influence. No underground water flow. The conclusion was unavoidable. The signal was biological, and that wasn't the most disturbing result. The AI then mapped movement patterns across all recorded scans. It projected future positions based on existing data, and what it showed was not random movement. It was coordination, a structured progression, as if something was following a plan. Then came something even more unsettling. Hidden beneath the figures, the scans revealed markings carved directly into the basalt floor. Not fractures, not erosion, patterns, repeating geometric sequences. The AI identified them as structured design, governed by mathematical rules, possibly a form of language, but it could not translate it. No known database on Earth matched the structure. Still, the system reached a conclusion with 94% certainty. The markings were intentional, they were intelligent, and they were not natural. When the team saw the result, one of them broke down completely, because it meant the impossible was now unavoidable. The beings inside the rock were not simply trapped. They were not random anomalies. They had been aware. They had left structure. They had left intention. They were waiting. And then the AI generated its final output. A single line that none of the researchers have been able to forget. Based on all available data, it estimated a high probability of a significant event occurring at the sealed entrance within the coming months. After that, the project was shut down, equipment removed, data sealed, and the official explanation finalized. But the AI does not lie. It does not protect careers. It does not fear consequences. It only analyzes what is there. And what it found suggests something is approaching. The only question now is not whether something is happening, but when. Because if that stone door opens again, it will not open into an empty world. It will open into ours. A world that no longer resembles the one it was buried in. New continents, new oceans, new civilizations, and a species that believes it owns the planet. Us. But the deeper question remains unanswered. Are they intelligent? Are they aware? Or are they something we have no framework to understand? And that uncertainty is more terrifying than any answer. For centuries, we believed history was finished, that everything ancient was already dead and buried. But what if it was never gone? What if it was only waiting? One of the researchers said something that still echoes through the entire investigation. We think the past is behind us, but what if it has been watching us all along? The stone has already moved once. The heartbeat signals are growing stronger, and every scan leads to the same conclusion. Something is preparing to emerge, and when it does, humanity may finally be forced to accept a truth it was never ready for. We were not the first. We were never alone. And something older than civilization itself may be about to return for what it has always considered its own.